Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pracharane Navishesha Shivani Paschachati Shatarane. So we recited the Guruvastaka. These are the 8 prayers in glorification of the spiritual master, which were written by, anybody know? The author of, oh wow, Mr. Guha, you're good. Yes, he said Vishwanath Chakravarti. And yes, he lived in the 15th century, I think. No, 17th century, sorry, 17th century. And an important link in our Guru Parampara, which goes from Prabhupada to Bhaktisiddhanta, Gorkishore Das Babaji, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Jagannath Das Babaji, and Baladev Vijayabhushana is there, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And then we go back to the direct disciples of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Goswamis. Thank you. And then we have Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, who is Sri Krishna Radha Krishna Nahe Anya. He is none other than the combined form of Radha and Krishna. So these 8 prayers are glorifying the spiritual master, and we were listening also to this English translation, which was written by a Prabhupada disciple from Britain, actually the first Prabhupada, the first English devotee to join the Krishna movement in '69, when some 3 American couples went to London to start Krishna consciousness there. His name was Guruvastaka. He's no longer with us, but he's here in sound. Vaishnavas, they die to live, says Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Guruvastaka.
They die to live.
Yeah, they die to live, and living spread the holy name around. Yeah. I know, yeah.
You can turn the mic around and
Right, you
This
could
one?
put that on the sound. Let me raise the sound here a little also.
Okay.
Turn the sound up a little. Where's the sound?
I should have stood up.
Oh, there it is.
So you can-
I just have it
that
low.
has leaking.
Carol and I were saying the same thing. She died.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
We're all like,
But I never had the right chance to try this out.
Yeah, last time we got as far as verse 5. And
Daddy,
Susan.
say something.
so we'll continue today with verse 6, 7, and 8. Yeah. So we can go. Shall we have it there?
I think the speaker's up here, underneath, I think.
Yeah. You remember this one?
Yeah.
Okay, shall we can listen to the first 5 again, and after each verse we could read the English translation. Okay, shall we start?
Yeah.
Receives benediction direct from the ocean.
just recite the literal translation, is that spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy. Just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire, so the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I therefore offer my most humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. So it's a metaphor, just as the only solution for a forest fire is that there's a deluge of rain from a cloud. So similarly, there is no relief from the cycle of repeated birth and death in the samsara wheel in the material world, except if the spiritual master will bless us with his unlimited mercy, which comes from the Supreme Lord. He is the representative of the Lord, and he has that empowerment. So he's like a rain cloud, and therefore he is compared to an ocean of auspiciousness. Okay, so that was verse 1. Any questions or comments? Okay, we go on to verse 2.
Take the mic then.
The mic
Yeah.
goes back here. Okay. Should move it away in between? Or
Yeah.
no? Okay, otherwise it'd be reverb maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chanting Hare Krishna, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing various
Thank you.
instruments. The spiritual master is bathed in deep love. His body erupts with ecstatic symptoms. His tears pouring down, hair standing on end. He appears to be just like one who is wed to the divine lotus feet of my spiritual master. I bow with deep respect and feelings of love. My master is the ocean of divine qualities. Surrender to the Lord, Shishira Isha.
Yeah, so this was verse 2, and the literal translation is chanting the holy name and dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master
There's no mic.
is engaged in the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And because he's relishing the mellows of devotional service, sometimes his hair stands on end, he feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. I therefore offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of the spiritual master. So this is the advanced stage of prema bhakti, raga nuga, raga bhakti, where one feels deep attachment to Krishna, and because of that, then there are ecstatic symptoms. It says here in this English version that he becomes like one who is mad, someone who's like he's gone, lost his mind. So that is to be understood this is an esoteric point here. We'll get more to this in verse number 6 here. But very advanced devotees, they actually don't care about the present situation, but they're completely absorbed in Krishna's darshan. They see Krishna directly before them, and they just exhibit the transcendental symptoms. That's the perfection of stage. We understand that our Srila Prabhupada was on that perfectional stage, but for the purpose of spreading Krishna consciousness, he assumed the behavior of the devotee in the second class, and he rarely exhibited those symptoms of being stunned and so on, ecstatic symptoms. Sometimes they appear. We've heard. I was never there when Prabhupada did like that. I just saw Prabhupada a few times. I think 4 times in different places from a distance. But there are descriptions from devotees who witnessed that Prabhupada actually lost contact with the external world and was obviously in a stunned mentality. Okay? Yes, so that was verse number 2. Any questions or comments about verse number 2? Okay, verse number 3 here.
The spiritual master worships the deities, all planted by lordships. Shishidata Krishna attentively cycles, assist as they dress them with beautiful clothes and jewel ornaments. To the divine lotus feet of my spiritual master, I bow with deep respect and feelings of love. My master is known, shown of divine qualities. Surrender to the Lord Shri Sri Ganesha.
Right. Okay, let's see. The literal translation of this is that spiritual master is engaged in the temple worship of Sri Sri Radha and Krishna, and he also engages his disciples in such worship. They bathe and clothe the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. So I therefore offer my most humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. So by Prabhupada's grace, and that's the spiritual master's business, that he worships the deity. He actually engages his senses, his hands, his eyes. He sees the deities and takes darshan, and he hears descriptions of the deities, and he cooks for, we'll get to that in the next verse, he cooks for the deities, but he also cleans the temple. There are, Prabhupada engaged his disciples in being very clean, and that was a great accomplishment, because speaking for myself, we were coming from modes of passion and ignorance where one is not particularly clean, sometimes quite the opposite. But he had that empowerment to change us to be clean, taking bath at least once a day, sometimes twice maybe, and changing clothes, and et cetera, and also being clean within by sattvic mentality and the Hare Krishna mantra. But it's I can't help but think of Tapas Prabhu in this connection, how loyally he was with Sri Sri Radha, Sri Sri Nitai Gaurasundar, Radha Krishna also. But first his Ishta Devas were the Nitai Gaurasundar, and under all circumstances he was taking good care of them. He was loyal to their service to his last breath. And cleaning the temple, that's Prabhupada demonstrated that. He got down on his hands and knees and was showing how to clean, the devotees also rebuild the temple. That's also a kind of mandira marjana. Mandira means temple, and marjana means cleansing. So the deities have, built the new temple. That's mandira marjana. At Almvik now, they're just starting a renovation now, a major endeavor, initiative, very exciting. They're building a new deity kitchen and moving the deity paraphernalia room, the sewing room, and everything. So that's mandira marjana, you could say, in an extended sense. And I was listening to a scholar of religion, a devotee, Hridayananda Maharaj, and he was saying how in the Christian tradition, particularly the Lutheran tradition, which has been here prominent in Sweden since Gustav Vasa, that the idea is belief. We believe in God, but Hridayananda Maharaj was saying that the Vaishnava, particularly Gaudiya Vaishnava, I think Vaishnava in general, but Gaudiya Vaishnava, our line, puts more emphasis on seeing God, and that's backed up in the Bhagavad Gita. That there is the word ashtika, means it means there is. That's the word for faith. To say God exists. Ashtikam. But he was pointing out in his scholarly way that the Bhagavad Gita emphasizes so many places to see God. Pratyaksha vaganam dharma, to see. Aksha means eyes. So we have the deities and we actually see the deities. It's not, if you would ask somebody, do you believe in Nitai Gaura Sundar? You'd say, well, it's just like an irrelevant question, if I believe in them, there they are, But he's also said that in the Hridayananda Maharaj was pointing this out, saying that in the Bhagavad Gita, the word for faith is actually Shraddha, which appears many times in many connections. And Shrad means your heart, and Ha means where you place it. So that's different than faith, it's where you actually put your heart. And then Krishna will, that where you put your heart actually is a choice, because you can put it either in Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, So devotees, by Prabhupada's grace, have the good fortune of being able to place our faith in sattva, in goodness, and then Krishna will help us mold ourselves after that. You are where you put your heart. That's when it's not simply like a theoretical idea of I believe in something abstract. But where you put your heart, that's the way you eat, that's the way you dress, that's the way you live. Your charity, your sacrifices, your self-restraint, all this is, by where you put your heart. And even if you put but goodness, Maharaj was pointing out that in goodness, it says that you worship the devas. You don't worship Nitai Gaura Sundar. Those in goodness, they worship devas. And Krishna will give them full conviction to do like that, because they've chosen that. But we are so fortunate is that we have actually we've been blessed with transcending sattva. We're actually so fortunate that we are putting our heart into the practice of pure devotional service. I certainly for myself, I don't claim to be a pure devotee, but on my better days, I'm practicing pure devotional service like all of you are obviously doing by, chanting Hare Krishna and practicing the Krishna consciousness as we've been taught by Srila Prabhupada. This is the practice of pure devotional service. So this is beyond sattva. And there Krishna becomes really involved. Just like he'll give faith to somebody who wants to be a devotee of, some political party or, something else. He'll give them that encouragement. Krishna will fully, because he wants us to fulfill our desires in this world. And for that purpose, he gives us, the backup to fulfill where we put our heart. So we're so fortunate that we're able to put our heart into Nitai Gaura Sundar and Panchatattva, Radha, Gandharvika Giridhari. So Krishna becomes really, gives us strength to do that. So that's the great blessing of the spiritual master. Okay? And yes, sir, Mr. Dalji.
Yeah. When you say devas,
Mm.
is that equivalent to half gods?
Yeah.
Or what do you mean?
They call demigods or,
Demigod.
demigods in English are called, devas. Yeah, so there are people in the mode of goodness who are very pious, they're clean, they're self-restrained, they're merciful, they're truthful, all these good qualities, but they want to go and make advancement in spiritual, in the material sense of having vast opportunities of heavenly enjoyment, long life in the higher planets where they can
Vegetarians.
have very high standard of pure happiness, beyond the blatant miseries of
That
these
is temporary.
miracles. I'm sorry?
That is temporary.
Yeah, this is the voice of those who are in Prabhupada's Shraddha, that they see that, well, that would be wonderful for them, have fun, but we're not interested in, coming back after, our long life and going through, the sacrifices again. But, that's how you learn, if you want to go to heaven and be a great God there, then you can do that. But ultimately, the point is that we have to learn that our real life and happiness and eternal fulfillment is there in beyond the spiritual world, in beyond the heavens, in the spiritual world with Krishna, Goloka Vrindavan, or maybe Lord Narayan in Vaikuntha, something like that. Is that okay?
What about you coming back to middle planets after being enjoying for a long time in the heavenly planet? What about the advancement of Kali Yuga?
Yeah, right. The Kali Yuga goes on and it becomes more and more intolerable.
After these 10,000 years of this golden age, it will be horrible.
Yes, it's predicted that there will be a 10,000 year insert of spiritual Sankirtan movement in the middle of the Kali Yuga, which started with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance 500 years ago. So, yeah, that if we would come back after the period of that, then it would be a very dismal future. Okay? All right, let's carry on to text number 4 here. What happened here? Oh yeah, here we go. Text number 4, okay?
The spiritual master offers Sri Krishna 4 pints of foodstuffs. We drink chula kosa. The spiritual master feels full satisfaction. Seeing devotees enjoy Bhagavad Prasad. To the divine love
Okay, text 4, the literal translation is that spiritual master is always offering to Krishna 4 kinds of delicious foodstuffs, that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. And when the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by taking Bhagavat Prasad, he becomes satisfied. I therefore offer my most humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master. So again, this is the tangible process of Krishna consciousness. It's the kitchen religion. Yeah, I saw there was going on full steam ahead there before the arati there. And as always, the devotees will cook for Krishna. And that begins with ingredients requiring, we go to the store and purchase things, and we're doing that to serve Krishna. Maybe at Amvik there, Ajneya is already busy planting his seeds, and the crew who takes care of the cows, they're, getting ready to sow the grass seeds in the pastures. You have to, I was explained to me, a city boy, that every so often you have to plow up the pasture, because a lot of weeds will come, what the cows don't like. So every so often you have to plow up the pasture and then sow new seeds so that it's nice grass. And then the cows will be very happy. Actually, Mother Yashoda, she would arrange, or maybe herself bring the cows to certain fields where there were just these wonderful grass and herbs which made the milk taste just like Krishna liked it. There's special herbs there. If you're really good in English, you could call it a connoisseur. In Swedish, what do you say? Finsmakare. Yeah.
Finsmakare.
Finsmakare. Yeah, if the cows eat. I'll tell you one thing that actually, in Virginia, just before I came to Sweden, that was a while ago, but I came to Sweden, I remember the first thing that would come up in the spring, just at this time, was a kind of onion. They called it scullions. And it's like, I don't know, maybe it was something, like lurk. And of course, the cows would immediately go for it, but then the milk tasted a little peculiar. But on the other hand, Mother Yashoda would bring the cows to, where there was special herbs, with properties and everything, and the milk would be just what Krishna would love it, be healthy and grow up and so on. So the spiritual master, he's invited us to take part in this wonderful exchange of love. The devotees, they give gifts, receive gifts, they inquire inquisitively, very confidentially, and they also open up their hearts with trusted other devotees. But they also give prasadam and receive prasadam. So that's really powerful exchange. And Lord Chaitanya warned that if you eat food cooked by a non-devotee, your mind becomes wicked. Lord Chaitanya said. So maybe it's an idea we bake our own bread and everything. Or maybe if you're really good, you can make chapatis, Prabhupada said, 3-week-old bread can't compare with fresh chapatis. Okay, any questions about the 4th verse?
Tapas Prabhu was mentioning this, this is a kitchen religion.
The kitchen
times,
religion,
many times. And he was
Yeah.
a very good cook.
Bhakti Nidhi, could you read for us the Prabhupada's quote of the day?
Okay.
Could you read that out loud for us? With your baritone voice there, you don't need a microphone.
April 12th. April 12th.
Today.
By prasadam distribution, you will do service to the Lord. and the public will be pleased upon you as well. Gradually increase the number of guests, and don't deny anyone. Continue in this way. Whatever is there, distribute equally. It may not be very sumptuous, but no one should be denied equal portion. Srila Prabhupada keep.
Jai.
Yeah, and where was this?
This was letter to Giriraj, April 12, 1972. It doesn't say which place.
Doesn't say where. Okay, we could guess, Giriraj, that this is Juhu. What year?
1972, April 12,
Okay,
1972.
yeah, you could imagine the newly acquired land there in Juhu near Bombay, outside of Bombay, and the devotees were struggling like anything to maintain that property which Prabhupada had bartered from a kind of crooked landlord who was trying to cheat them out of it. And Prabhupada was determined that he would not allow Krishna's money to be cheated. So he was inspiring the devotees, although they had a very, very austere situation, to, whatever they could, you could share it equally, and it doesn't have to be so fancy prasadam, but it's prasadam, and that is, will make the public favorable. And you're also serving the Lord, first of all. So this is a very, very important wing of Srila Prabhupada's Krishna consciousness movement and his strategy for capturing our hearts. Any questions? Okay, 5. Actually, what time? What is our time
We
frame?
can go on to until 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock. Yeah, okay, so we have some few minutes. We'll be able to finish today. All right,
Speed up.
speed up, okay. Yeah,
Otherwise, we have to continue next Sunday.
okay.
Yeah, that's better. But
We actually
it's
started,
painful.
we started this in Melendagina, remember?
Oh,
Yeah, we were, Melendagina, we were doing this, started this.
Not some
So
year.
maybe,
Some year.
yes. Okay, back to 5 now, right?
The spiritual master loves hearing and chanting about the conjugal pastimes of Radha Madhava. The qualities, names, forms and exchanges are furnished by him each and every moment. To the divine lotus feet of my spiritual master, I bow with deep respect and feelings of love. My master is the ocean of divine qualities, surrendered to the Lord Shri Shri Ganesha.
Yeah, so the literal translation here. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Shri Shri Radha and Madhava, their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I therefore offer my most humble obeisances under the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. Yeah, so the spiritual master is a devotee of Radha Krishna, and Krishna, he is asumerdva. Nobody is equal to or superior to him, but he's not a loner. He likes company. A trapper.
Yeah.
So he expands himself in his internal pleasure potency, and that's Srimati Radharani, and from her all the unlimited numbers of gopis are expanded, and Krishna is enjoying the rasa of conjugal love. And therefore we have this reflected in our material. You know, everybody, practically speaking, wants to get married and have a happy home life like that. And that's because it comes from Radha and Krishna. So the spiritual master, he loves to talk about that. And it's said in the Srimad Bhagavatam that one who hears about these the rasa dance of Lord Krishna with the gopis, then his heart becomes free from the hridrogam, the disease of the heart, which is lust. That will be extinguished by hearing these intimate pastimes of Krishna. But of course, if we're not prepared for that, you know, we have to be discreet, and it can be counterproductive if we're not ready for that and we hear about these pastimes of Krishna. Then there's a risk that it can be misinterpreted, and we can become what is called prakrita sahajas, you know, to try and imitate Krishna like that. That risk, it has been exhibited in the Gaudiya Vaishnava movement, particularly before Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhakti Siddhanta, who really cleaned up any, you know, trace, well, like that. And Prabhupada was also very insistent upon that also. If there was any trace of that in his disciples, he became very alert and curbed it.
Sahaji.
So, yeah, sahaja means natural, and actually it's a favorable term in the theology. But to differentiate, you know, genuine appreciation for Radha and Krishna's confidential pastimes from the perverted reflection of those who think it mundane and try to imitate it and mess it up, then Bhaktisiddhanta added the word prakrita. So they're natural in a materialistic way, and that he was vehemently opposed to and, you know, spoke very strongly against. But you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, we're supposed to, on some beautiful day, become, you know, attracted to that in a very pure way. Okay, any questions about that?
I have a comment.
Yeah, comment.
There is, you know, in the pastimes of Guru and Gauranga and Gadadhar Pandit, there's
Raghava Pandit?
Gadadhar Pandit.
Gadadhar Pandit, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, okay. Gauranga and Gadadhar Pandit,
Yeah,
yeah.
just Gadadhar Gauranga. You know, Gadadhar Pandit, he was very, very close, super devoted to Lord Chaitanya.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, he was chanting like in a stupor, and he was offering nuts and garlands, and, you know, he was totally given to Gauranga. And he was
Do things even?
given to Lord Gauranga.
Given.
He was totally surrendered. He was totally, his heart and soul and everything, you know, it was like,
Mm-hmm.
so it was kind of, he had a very, very deep love for Lord Chaitanya. And, you know, he was sleeping with him in the night, and can be also a little misunderstood. But the warning is that there was no lingam between them, not at all. Gadadhar Pandit, he was a staunch brahmachari, and Lord Chaitanya is totally off from all materialistic thoughts and material activities.
Mm.
And this is purely taking place on the spiritual platform between Gauranga and Gadadhar Pandit.
Hmm.
So there is also a great warning not get into this and think that there is something, you know, between them which is not be there.
Yeah. It reminds me, I heard from your spiritual master, Jagannatha Swami. I think he was here in Sweden in Gadadhar's appearance day, or in some connection. I forget exactly, but he was speaking about Gadadhar, and he mentioned that Gadadhar is not elaborately explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's quite brief. There's of course that encounter with the Valavabhata. That was maybe the most explicit description of Gadadhar in a kind of negative way, where he was like questioned or where he was tested like that. But Jagannatha Swami's point was that there's very little, because he's Radharani, so he was kind of taking like a back role, a subsidiary role in the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is very highly confidential, and maybe someday we'll get some more insights into that. Okay? All right, now we get to the real esoteric one. And we're running out of time, so good. We won't have to go too much speculations about this. Okay? Here, number six. What is little...
The spiritual master assists in planning the conjugal pastimes for Sri Yogindra, because he's so expert in such tasteful arrangements. He's so very dear to Sri Radha Krishna, to the divine lotus feet of my spiritual master. I bow with deep respect and feelings of love. My master is an ocean of divine qualities, surrendered to the Lord Shri Radha.
Yeah, so the literal translations that I got it. Spiritual master is very dear because he's expert at assisting the gopis, who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of the conjugal loving affairs of Shri Radha and Krishna in the groves of Vrindavan. I offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. So the rasa theology of Rupa Goswami is it elaborates on different rasas. That there's Shanta ras, for neutral admiration of the Lord, Dasya ras for active service to the Lord as master, and then there's the friendship like Balaram, and Balaram is sometimes also in the
Vatsalya ras.
Vatsalya, yeah, thank you. Vatsalya, the parental ras, he's like a marginal, there is sometimes this and sometimes that. Bhaktisiddhanta says Sakya in Nectar of Instruction, in his comments on the Nectar of Instruction. But yeah, then there's also the conjugal. And there it said, Vrajavadu Vargena Nakalpite. How does that start? That there is no form of worship superior to that which has been conceived by the damsels of Vrindavan. That's the utmost intimacy, and Krishna in his sweetest and most intimate exchange there. And that is Lord Chaitanya's gift to, he's called Mahabhadanya Avatar, because in the midst of the Kali Yuga, he has, given us the highest benediction of access to the rasa of Vrindavan, the conjugal rasa of Vrindavan. And he helps us in, our disqualification. He'll guide us so that we don't blow it with, rasa basa or so many other different pitfalls that could, sahajiyism, like Mataji was warning us about. So yeah, this is a very,
When?
yeah, go ahead.
7?
Huh?
7?
7, okay, yeah,
I have just
enough
a-
is
We
enough.
have some
Have one?
comment here.
Can I ask a comment?
Yeah, please do.
It sounds like the spiritual master assists in planning the conjugal pastimes of Sri Yugal Kishore.
Hmm.
It sounds like the spiritual master is a manjari actually. In
Okay.
Manjari Bhav.
Now you got this thing. As I recall, I'm not 100% sure, but as far as I recall, Kula Shekar, who was here in Sweden in 1977 when Prabhupada disappeared, and he was very musical, and he brought us for Harinam, which was how we observed Prabhupada's disappearance day. And I still remember the melody that he sang. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. I'll never forget, that was completely new to us here in Sweden in 1977 when we had that downtown for Prabhupada's disappearance. But the point I was going to say in this regard to Manjari Baba is that somebody asked Prabhupada, I think it was Kula Shekar, they said, Prabhupada, what is your specific relationship to Krishna? And has anybody heard that? That somebody asked Prabhupada that? Does anybody know what Prabhupada said? I asked this, I was trying to find it on the internet, but I couldn't find it, in database, a reliable source, not artificial intelligence, but, a reliable source, but I couldn't find it. But I mentioned this in Copenhagen, and there was one elder devotee, Lalitanath Prabhu, and he said the exact answer in the exact same words, which I remember hearing that Prabhupada answered that question. And Prabhupada's answer was, that you do not require. In other words, if he asked him, what is your rasa? Are you Manjari or you're Sakya or this or that? And Prabhupada's answer was, that you do not require. So, one last thing about this verse before we're going to go on here is that Smita Krishna Swami's good friend, Yadanandan Swami, he wrote already like 7 years ago, in 2019, a book called Narottam Shiksha, because he was teaching at the college there in Bangladesh about the different acharyas and their songs. So he always got he personally got really attached to Narottam, teaching about Narottam. So he wrote a book about it, and it's a far out book. It's like. It's like really, Narottam is like really way up there, I'll tell you. He's like really intimate, associated with Krishna, and when I read those, I always think, okay, later, some lifetime or some, But when I was reading this book, he would start quoting Narottam, and I would start to think like, oh wait a minute, this is above my head, and then. Yadanandan, he would quote something from Prabhupada or something that we all know in ISKCON, which would grab my attention and say, oh yeah, I know what he's talking about. So this went on the whole book, I couldn't put it down, I kept thinking, this is too much for me. But then he would say something that, I recognize, So that was a far out book, but the point is, he says that we should not be shy. We should actually, he encourages, that we should think about this, that our perfection is that we will develop raga, that we will actually, in some day, become so attached to Krishna in a particular service with intensity, or he means to say, like, we will be attracted to some devotee in Vrindavan, like Prabhupada, for example, like Udaranga Mataji was telling us, our Vrindavan Vasi is Prabhupada. And I think that's a good insight, right? That's what you told me, didn't you? Yeah. So I think this is a safe, we could all say. And Prabhupada, in that book also it said, one devotee in this, kind of was asking Prabhupada, what is my rasa? And Prabhupada was furious, and then Prabhupada calmed down, according to the story, and got an Swami, and then he told him, he said, okay, you just wait, and when you're ready, I'll come and tell you. But okay, is that enough? We better go on here, because otherwise I'm going to have to come back next Sunday. Okay, text number 7.
Actually, there is one little point.
Okay, yes.
In Markine Bhagavat Dharma, this
Markine Bhagavat Dharma, yeah.
Srila Prabhupada's poems.
In the Boston Harbor in 1965, yeah.
There is one of the verses there. He speaks something like how you say? He was speaking about the pasturing grounds in Vrindavan.
I think you're mixing them up. There's two. One is Markine Bhagavat Dharma. That was when he was on the ground there in America. But on the boat, he wrote another poem that you're talking about. On his mid-Atlantic somewhere. He wrote that one about, yes, I'm longing for that. We were there in the pastures and we were joking and like that. It sounded very rasika.
Or something about this.
Yeah, that's
somewhere
okay.
there.
All right, moving on here.
But that was on Jaladuta,
That was-
steamship.
Yeah, somewhere, in the Jaladuta, there's two of them. That's the one that you're talking about, there. It begins like the disciples of Bhakti Siddhanta are, distributing all over the world, and then he goes on to say like that. Okay, we're carrying on with text number 7, okay? Verse number 7, sorry.
The spiritual master is declared by the scriptures, and are not the saints just as the Lord himself. He is to be worshipped on a level with Krishna, his manifest nature, none different from God. To the divine lotus feet of my spiritual master, I bow with deep respect and feelings of love. My master is an ocean of divine qualities. Surrender to the Lord Shri Shri Radha.
Okay, it's 4 o'clock. We just go on to 8 now, okay?
By His mercy, we are favored by Krishna. Without His grace, we have no hope at all. 3 times every day, in deep meditation, I focus my mind on His divine lotus feet. To the divine lotus feet of my spiritual master, I bow with deep respect and feelings of love. My master is an ocean of divine qualities. Surrender to the Lord Shri Shri Radha.
Now there's 1/9 one. This is the fruit of having heard this. What is the result?
Recite with attention during Brahma-muhurta, and you're sure to attain your spiritual form in which to serve the lotus feet of Krishna, the life and soul of Vrindavan Dham. To the divine lotus feet of my spiritual master, I bow with deep respect and feelings of love. My master is an ocean of divine qualities. Surrender to the Lord Shri Shri Radha.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Shishi Kulashekar Das Prabhu ki jai.
Jai.
Tapas Prabhu ki jai. Okay, no time for any further
Yogindra
questions.
Prabhu ki jai.
Yogindra Prabhu.
Yogindra Prabhu ko jai.
What's the name of the book?
Narottam Shiksha.
Uh-huh.
You want to read in Sanskrit?
Det var intressant.
And the name of the book?
Yadunanga.
Janana.
We have the Sanskrit version.
The Sanskrit?
Musical, like is this in a banda, no?
I don't follow.
Can we play it with the original music and language?
Oh yeah, okay. The Guruvastaka.
To be honest.
Yeah, in Sanskrit. I tell you what, after prasadam, if anybody is eager, then we can sing the Guruvastaka in the Sanskrit. Okay, if you still have time.
No,
You know.
can you play?
Yes.
Yeah. And actually we'll play that melody that we were.
Yeah.
There's a morning melody. You know, it says. Oh, by the way, if anybody would like to keep one of these, you know, please, you know, be free to do so. Otherwise, we'll collect them. But you know, there's a morning melody, which you know, Prabhupada was very insistent that we would use in the morning, and that only. You know, when. Okay, this is the last thing, but you know, our Harikesh Swami here, he was for some time temple president in Vrindavan, and then Prabhupada, like 76, I think, 75, 76, when Prabhupada was very insistent on establishing the kirtan standards. And he, you know, drilled Harikesh Swami that this melody should be used at the Mangal Arati. You know, that melody is the one that Prabhupada wanted at the whole Mangal Arati, you know, from beginning to end. You know. Anyway, there's another melody in the evening, an evening melody. That's a morning melody. You know, there's some raga connection with morning, but there's another very nice melody which for evening time, which we practice it in. We're singing it in Melandagana when we started this Guruvastaka here. So we can sing that melody then. If anybody has the interest and you have time, we'll do that after Prasadam. We'll clean up and then we'll chant the Guruvastaka. Is that okay? Jai. Yes.
So a little comment I wanted to just say to that verse when you described that spiritual master is so satisfied when devotees become satisfied with prasadam, but also there is an instruction that we should distribute prasadam equally for everybody. And just as a little comment, Srila Prabhupada definitely gave this instruction also that in the beginning of one's spiritual life, one should not be really shy about prasadam and as much as one wants. And there is a really tradition that especially devotees, when they join, they just get the taste of prasadam, which is no different from Krishna, and they are sometimes devouring a huge plates of prasadam, but it's completely bona fide. one should not be shy. And I have just a little funny story, kind of I got reminded, but my spiritual master, his name is Raghunath Maharaj, when he traveled from India after practicing the bhakti with yogis in Himalayas, and finally he found Prabhupada and he surrendered his life to Prabhupada. Then he came to first ISKCON temple, which was in Holland that time, and he was completely shocked because he was used to live such an austere life with yogis 1 carat per day and very, very simple, sometimes just fasting for days, and so that this is a part of yoga, of course, bhakti yoga, but then he saw how devotees were living there. They just somehow collected a lot of funds through Harinam, and they really made huge feasts, wonderful feasts. They had a very good cook there, and sometimes they were so filled with the prasadam that they even almost fainted on the roof, and there was no prasadam left for the Sunday feast program, or just very little few did the kind of preparations which were not so popular, and he had a hard time to kind of digest that, but then afterwards he understood, okay, in the beginning one is allowed to eat as much as one wants. It's just a little comment.
Once they asked Prabhupada, the devotees are really stuffing themselves with prasadam, and Prabhupada said, that's good, but it's not very good. Okay? Prasadam. Sharira Vijajal. Oh, wait a minute, we have japa now.
We have chanting.
Okay.
Chanting.
One step.
Japa and standing
Sorry.
kirtan.
Yeah, right.
Prabhu, maybe you can give the